Well, let's see how the gun ban disarming the population worked in Venezuela. This will show you what a sheeple-like population will do, thinking and hoping their government doesn't turn tyrannical. Every single time when a country government takes the guns from the people at some point or another, and it's usually not too long, a tyrannical force within the government just so happens to be in power, and there's nothing you can do about it. You can't fight for your rights. Crime, well, and they always tell you it's for crime and to keep things peaceful and all this nonsense, and it's never that, because then crime comes out. No one has a way to defend themselves. It's, you know, socialism at its finest every time. As Venezuela continues to crumble under the socialist dictatorship of President Nicolas Maduro, some are expressing words of warning and resentment against a 6-year-old gun control bill that stripped citizens of their weapons. Quote, guns would have served as a vital pillar to remaining a free people, or at least able to put up a fight, Javier Venegas, 28, a Venezuelan teacher of English, now exiled in Ecuador, told Fox News. The government security forces at the beginning of this debacle knew they had no real opposition to their force. Once things were this bad, it was a clear declaration of war against an unarmed population. Under the direction of then-President Hugo Chavez, the Venezuelan National Assembly in 2012 enacted the Control of Arms, Munitions, and Disarmament Law, with the explicit aim to disarm all citizens. The law took effect in 2013, with only minimal pushback from some pro-democracy opposition figures, banned the legal commercial sale of guns and munitions to all, except government entities. Chavez initially ran a month-long amnesty program encouraging Venezuelans to trade their arms for electrical goods. That year, there were only 37 recorded voluntary gun surrenders. So, looks like, well, let me finish. While the majority of seizures of those weapons, more than 12,500, were by force. So there was a part of the population who said, we know what this means. We're not just going to voluntarily give up our weapons. Well, that's okay. They came in and kicked their doors down and took them. In the name of peace and less crime, as you'll see in a minute. In 2014, with Nicolas Maduro at the helm following Chavez's death, but carrying through his socialist Chavista policies, the government invested more than $47 million enforcing the gun ban, which has since included grandiose displays of public weapons demolitions in the town square. A former gun owner inside Venezuela who told Fox News he has now been relegated to only selling fishing supplies since the ban, said he can't sell any type of weaponry, even a slingshot, and underscored that even a BB gun, airsoft guns, are only issued to police and military officers. The punishment for illicit carrying or selling a weapon now is 20 years behind bars. Prior to the 2012 reform, there were only around 8 gun stores in the entire country, and the process of obtaining a legal permit to own and carry was plagued by long wait lines, high costs, and bribery, to make the process a little swifter, at the one department that was allowed to issue licenses, which operated under the umbrella of the Ministry of Defense. Venezuelans didn't care enough about it. The idea of having the means to protect your home was seen as only needed out in the fields. People never would have believed they needed to defend themselves against the government, Venegas explains. Venezuelans evolved to always hope that our government would not, Venezuelans evolved to always hope that our government would be non-tyrannical, non-violator of human rights, and would always have a good enough control of criminality. He said it didn't take long for such a wide-eyed public perception to fall apart. If guns had been a stronger part of our culture, if there had been a sense of duty for one to protect their individual rights, and as a show of force against a government power, and had legal carry been a common thing, it would have made a huge difference, he lamented. Since April 2017, almost 200 pro-democracy protesters in Venezuela, armed mostly with stones, were shot dead by government forces in brutal retaliation to their call to end the oppressive socialist regime. The once oil-wealthy nation has continued its downward spiral into financial ruin, extreme violence, and mass human rights violations. An estimated 3 million Venezuelans have been forced to flee since 2015. Quote, Venezuelans show the deadly peril when citizens are deprived of the means of resisting the depredations of a criminal government, said David Coppell, a policy analyst and research director at the Independence Institute and adjunct professor of advanced constitutional law at Denver University. The Venezuelan rulers, like their Cuban masters, apparently viewed citizen possession of arms as a potential danger to a permanent communist monopoly of power. Although the bill was sold to the population, again, this is what we always hear, in our country, those leftist Democrats are trying it too, sold to the population as a hardline effort to improve security and sharply reduce crime. Many now point to Venezuela as a case study for how gun prohibition can actually produce the opposite effect. In Venezuelan crisis, families can't even afford to properly bury the dead. That's a headline they're showing you here. The violent crime rate, already high, has soared. Almost 28,000 people were murdered in 2015, with the homicide rate becoming the world's highest. Homicide rate becoming the world's highest. Compare that, according to gunpolicy.org, an international firearms prevention and policy research initiative, to just under 10,000 in 2012 over there, and 6,500 in 2001, which was the year before Chavez came to power. The total number of gun deaths in 2013 was estimated to be 14,622, having steadily risen from 10,913 in 2002. While comprehensive data now goes unrecorded by the government, of course, in September this year, Amnesty International declared Venezuela had a murder rate worse than some war zones, 89 people per 100,000 people, and 3 times that of its volatile neighbor Brazil. Much of the crime has been attributed by analysts to government-backed gangs, referred to in Spanish as colectivos, who were deliberately put in place by the government. They were set up by the government to act as proxies and exert community control. They're the guys on the motorcycles in the poor neighborhoods who killed any protesters, said Vanessa Newman, the Venezuelan American president and founder of Asymmetrica, a Washington, D.C. based political risk research and consulting firm. The gun reform policy of the government was about social control. As the citizenry got more desperate and hungry and angry with the political situation, they did not want them to be able to defend themselves. It was not about security. It was about a monopoly on violence and social control. Well, that's what it always is. That's what, again, socialists, that's what they do. Oh, no, it's going to be great. It's going to be peaceful. No one's going to have any guns. It's going to be great. Well, how do I protect myself from someone breaking into my house? Call the police. And when the police are busy or they can't get here in time, then what's the old saying? When seconds count, the police are just minutes away. Billy club? Is that illegal? Oh, it might be illegal. Baseball bat, perhaps? But what if there's several people and they've also got bats? Or since they're criminals, maybe they have guns. A liberal Democrat will never tell you that. They want gun control so that those liberal Democrats could take over. That was the plan. We would be run by a bunch of liberals. The entire country would be a liberal mindset and liberal propaganda, liberal school teachings, liberal teachers, liberal everything. And if you didn't like it, you get out of line, your door might get kicked in by the government. That's where this was heading. Oh, this is America. That would never happen. That's where we were at. It was Hillary was one vote, not really one vote, but one vote for all of us collectively away from winning. So while Venezuelan citizens were stripped of their legal recourse to bear arms, the colectivos established by Chavez when it came to power were legally locked and loaded. Deemed crucial to the survival of the socialist dictatorship, the colectivos functioned to brutally subjugate opposition groups while saving some face as they aren't officially government forces, critics contend. Now, is that kind of like when you're doing a YouTube video and you're kind of exposing the leftist agenda, and all of a sudden your video says it's been demonetized, it may not be advertiser friendly, or we had to take your video down, bullying and harassment. I'm sorry, who got bullied? I was just making a comment. Like, God forbid if you make a comment about gender, there's only a certain number of genders or whatever. Oh. Bullying and harassment. What? And now, a little far cry from, getting on motorcycles and shooting protesters. However, we still got our guns. We can shoot back. But if we didn't have guns in this country, where would those liberal Democrats, where would we be right now? I'm telling you, it wouldn't be a pretty space. It'd be a very scary space. But we got Trump in office, shining light on this darkness. Eduardo Espinal, 35, who serves as a representative for the rapidly growing Venezuelan population in the Colombian border town of Cucuta, having fled his ailing nation 2 years ago under the threat of being kidnapped by local gangsters, said that the law had proliferated the violence by allowing the colectivos to freely and legally shoot and kill everyone else but the common citizens. This law asks for the disarming of the common people, but everyone else can carry, he said. This kind of law might make sense in a normal country, but in Venezuela, it makes no sense. People are faced with crime and have no easy means to defend themselves. And Maribel Arias, 35, who was once a law and political science student at the University of Los Andes in her home state of Mérida, but fled to the Colombian border with her family 2 years ago, living mostly on the streets as she and her husband take turns finding odd jobs, such as selling water and attending bathrooms, and while sharing the parenting duties of tending to their 4 children, bemoaned that they simply cannot rely on the nation's law enforcement. The people of Venezuela should have rights for gun carrying because there is just too much crime, and people should have the right to defend themselves because the justice system is not working, she said. If you call the police come only if they want to. If they capture the criminal, maybe they will take away whatever they stole. But they normally go free again. It's a vicious cycle. There's a little more to this article, but again, this is what happens with socialism. It's always about control of the people. Again, I don't think anyone really, a lot of people, you guys probably do, but a lot of people don't really realize why our founding fathers said, just like the guy he was almost reading our Constitution, the right of a free people to stay free, a militia must be allowed, and, however he was wording it, it's like our Constitution. We're in a different country, though, but you can see why. Oh, it's got a reply from Dick Algar. I gave him a drum track. He was one of his Bitcoin song. He's doing a song, and Big Swear's doing a song, and they're gonna have a song off to see who votes for which one of their songs, who gets the highest votes. So he's like, hey, can you put a track on that? For what he did he did a remote viewing session for me that we didn't even know he was doing it. We were going to task him with an ID remote viewing. And before he even got the task, because he never got it yet, he went to some kind of SVR, whatever you call it, S5 session, something. He's like, I know somebody wants to give me a task. I haven't received it yet, but here's what I got. I see Jay Snip with the sun hat on, and the first thought that comes to mind is he needs to have some sunscreen on. He described the actual hat that I have, that I always wear when I'm out for burning my bald head reasons. And he gave me some information on that. It was really neat. Really neat. I can't really go in depth yet with what he saw. But it was great. It was incredible. So anyways, I just saw an email flying in there. He's like, hey, send me that with just the drums. And I'm like, it was on there. It's a second attachment. He's like, oh, I was so excited. I only listened to the first one. Because I put the drum track on his song to start with. I figured, well, he'll probably change the volume of that anyway. So I resent it to him. I was like, yeah, the snare, the rim shot was a little loud. It sounded good on headphones, but when I played it on my laptop, boy, it's extra loud, it seemed like. So I resent it. Anyways, email just came in. So anyways, yeah, I'm telling you, and I know some people don't want to hear this, but Jay Snip does a lot of research, okay? Be very, very, this may be painful to hear. Be very, very thankful Trump is in there and not Clinton. We would be going down this path of Venezuela. And yes, you'd keep hearing about more shootings and more of this, and those damn Democrats, they'd end up passing a bill, and it'd go a little bit more, and then they'd get to a point where we're pretty much disarmed. Thank your lucky stars. I'm telling you. Take care.